October 1962. 13 days that almost ended the world. What if the diplomatic cables never arrived in time? What if the Cuban Missile Crisis ended in fire instead of a handshake? Today, we step into a timeline where the Iron Curtain didn't fall. It melted. Witness the flashpoint, a single spy plane shot down over Cuban skies. Watch it trigger an immediate strike against the batteries that killed its pilot. There was no hotline yet between Washington and Moscow, only slow cables and rising panic. Watch medium-range missiles cross the Florida Straits within minutes. Witness the dawn of a nuclear winter that erases empires and forces whatever's left of humanity underground forever. This is the story of the closest the world ever came to ending, and the terrifying timeline where it actually did. Because sometimes 13 days is all that separates history from extinction. What if I told you that timeline came down to one submarine officer and one decision? What if, this time, he'd said yes? To understand how close we came, you have to understand what actually happened. In October 1962, American spy planes photographed something alarming in Cuba. Soviet nuclear missile sites, under construction, 90 miles from Florida. President Kennedy convened a secret group of advisors, the XCOM. For 13 days, the world's two nuclear superpowers stared each other down. Kennedy chose a naval blockade. He called it a quarantine, instead of an invasion. Soviet ships carrying more missiles approached the blockade line and stopped. For a moment, it looked like the crisis might simply de-escalate. Then came October 27th. Historians call it Black Saturday. It remains the most dangerous day in recorded human history. That morning, a U-2 spy plane flew reconnaissance over Cuba. A Soviet surface-to-air missile shot it down without direct authorization from Moscow. Its pilot, Major Rudolf Anderson, was killed instantly. He remains the only combat casualty of the entire crisis. Kennedy's military advisors urged immediate retaliation. Many wanted airstrikes. Some wanted invasion. Kennedy refused. He chose to wait just a little longer. That same day, hundreds of miles away, a second crisis was unfolding underwater. A Soviet submarine, the B-59, was trapped by American depth charges near the blockade. Its crew, cut off from Moscow for days, believed war may have already begun. The submarine carried a nuclear torpedo. Launching it required agreement from 3 officers. 2 of them voted yes. 1 did not. His name was Vasili Arkhipov. His refusal alone stopped the launch. Historians now consider him one of the most consequential people of the century. Almost no one had heard his name for decades afterward. Behind the scenes, Kennedy and Khrushchev were negotiating a way out. Publicly, the United States agreed not to invade Cuba. Privately, in a deal kept secret for over 25 years, it agreed to something more. American Jupiter missiles stationed in Turkey would be quietly withdrawn. On October 28th, Khrushchev agreed to remove the missiles from Cuba. The crisis ended. 13 days after it began. No missiles were fired. No cities burned. There was no hotline between the 2 capitals at the time. Not yet. Messages traveled by cable and radio, sometimes taking hours to arrive and decode. That delay itself had nearly cost the world everything. In the aftermath, both governments moved quickly to fix it. In 1963, they installed a direct line between Washington and Moscow. The famous red telephone the world remembers didn't exist yet in 1962. It was built specifically because of how close this crisis had come to disaster. Now imagine one small change to Black Saturday. Imagine Kennedy's military advisors get their way, just this once. Imagine the shootdown of Major Anderson's plane triggers immediate retaliation. American aircraft launch a tactical strike on the Soviet missile batteries in Cuba. In our story, Moscow doesn't wait for explanations. It responds in kind. Medium-range missiles launch from Cuban soil, aimed across the Florida Straits. There is no hotline to call and stop it. There never was one yet. Only slow cables, panicked commanders, and minutes that no longer exist. In our story, the submarine crew off Cuba gets the same order everyone else does. This time, all three officers agree. The full nuclear arsenals of two superpowers move to launch status within the hour. It's not a single missile anymore. It's everything, aimed at everything. Within minutes, warheads are already in the air over the Atlantic. There is no XCOM debate left to have, no 13 days left to negotiate. Just the horrifying math of mutually assured destruction running its course. Every city that took decades to build becomes a target within the hour. The Iron Curtain doesn't fall in this story. It melts, along with everything behind it. In our real history, restraint won by the narrowest possible margin. In this one, it simply doesn't. To understand what comes next, you have to understand what scientists later learned. In 1983, a team led by astronomer Carl Sagan modeled this exact scenario. They didn't just study bombs, they studied smoke. Burning cities release enormous amounts of soot into the upper atmosphere. That soot doesn't just fall back down, it spreads, and it blocks the sun. Their model suggested it could drop temperatures across entire continents for months. Farmland that once fed billions freezes, mid-growing season, everywhere at once. Scientists called it a nuclear winter. The name has haunted policy ever since. In our story, that's exactly what unfolds, continent by continent. The skies over the northern hemisphere darken within days. Crops fail simultaneously on every continent that still has functioning farmland. Global supply chains, fragile even in peacetime, collapse within weeks. National governments, built for a world of stability, cannot function in this one. Many capitals no longer exist. Many leaders never make it to safety in time. But some do. For decades, both superpowers had quietly built exactly this contingency. Deep underground bunkers, designed to keep governments running through exactly this scenario. Places like Raven Rock, buried beneath the Appalachian Mountains. The Soviet Union built its own version, deep beneath Moscow itself. In our story, these aren't backup plans anymore. They're the only plan left. Whoever reaches them in time becomes the entire remaining chain of command. Whoever doesn't simply becomes part of the crisis unfolding above ground. Within months, the surface world most people remember stops functioning entirely. Radiation, freezing temperatures, failed harvests, no functioning global trade. The idea of nations, as we understand them, barely survives the transition. What survives instead is smaller, harder, and far more local. Fortified bunkers become the seeds of entirely new, isolated communities. Each one governs itself. Each one guards its own remaining resources fiercely. Historians in this timeline, if there still are any, call them city-states. Not nations rebuilding. Small, hardened pockets, simply trying to survive the winter. The ideological fight that started this whole crisis stops mattering almost immediately. No one underground is still debating capitalism versus communism. They're debating food rationing, water purification, and who controls the remaining farmland. The entire structure of the 20th century, empires, alliances, ideologies, simply ends. What replaces it isn't a new world order. It's the absence of one. Decades pass before the skies clear enough for agriculture to fully recover. Generations grow up who have never known a world before the bunkers. Some historians argue humanity would eventually rebuild. Slowly, painfully, unevenly. Others argue some regions never fully recover the populations they once had. Either way, the 20th century's story ends in October 1962 in this timeline. Everything after that isn't progress, it's just survival. That's the world one shot-down spy plane and one impatient decision could have built. It's not a movie ending. It's a real model, built on real science. Now, it would be easy to end the story there. Too easy. Because this isn't really a story about an alternate timeline. It's a story about how thin the line actually was in ours. Major Rudolf Anderson was a real person. He really died that day. His family received a folded flag, not a headline about a timeline avoided. Vasili Arkhipov was a real officer, standing in a real overheated submarine. He wasn't performing heroism for history. He was exhausted and scared and right. For decades, almost no one outside classified archives even knew his name. He died in 1998, largely unrecognized for what his refusal had actually prevented. Historians didn't fully piece together how close B-59 came until years later. When they did, many called it the single most dangerous moment in human history. Not a movie moment, an actual submarine, an actual vote, an actual no. The scientists behind the nuclear winter models weren't writing fiction either. They were trying to warn two governments what their stockpiles could actually do. That warning helped push both superpowers towards serious arms reduction talks. In that sense, the real what if already did some good, without ever happening. It's uncomfortable to turn a near-extinction event into a thought experiment. But maybe that discomfort is exactly the point. Today, the doomsday clock still exists, tracking exactly this kind of risk. It was created by scientists in 1947, and it's been adjusted ever since. As of recent years, it sits closer to midnight than at any point in its history. Nuclear arsenals today are smaller than they were in 1962. They are not gone. Thousands of warheads remain, on hair-trigger alert, on multiple continents. The bunkers built during the Cold War haven't been decommissioned. Many still function. The scenario this video described isn't ancient history or pure fiction. It's a standing possibility, resting on systems built by fallible, tired human beings. In 1962, restraint won by one refused order and 13 careful days. There's no guarantee it wins that narrowly the next time. Maybe the real lesson isn't about the bombs at all. Maybe it's this: civilization has survived its own ending before, by inches. The greatest questions in history aren't about what happened. They're about how close we came to it never happening at all. This is Oviora. Keep wondering.